What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Tuesday Track Talk podcast, episode number 88. Pretty fitting. Not only a NASCAR legend, Dale Jr., but also coming off of the Mexico weekend with Jizzy. So it's a big episode for us today. I am your gas man, Cam.
I'm your Jack Man Kel.
I'm your tire changer Cam.
And as we alluded to here, we got a jam-packed episode. It was action-packed weekend of racing for us up in the Midwest in the great state of Wisconsin, and also just getting back from our first international trip down south of the border. With the Cup Series, so we're going to talk all things NASCAR making the trip south of the border to Mexico, and then we're going to talk some ASA Stars tour that we had, two big shows up here in Wisconsin at Madison and Slinger. So before we always dive into some racing, let's just do a quick check in. How we doing, boys?
Good.
Yeah, coming off an awesome weekend of racing. I
Yep.
took some time off to be able to hit all the racing that happened this weekend, and glad I went. Learned a lot, had a lot of thoughts that we'll talk about today. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. Always a good weekend when you can get to not only the racetrack, but one of your favorite tracks. Being at Madison on Friday, I love being at Madison. Facilities are awesome. So that's always one of my favorite places to go. So not only being at the racetrack, but having a big show at one of your favorite facilities is always awesome to have.
Yeah, and few storylines came out of those two races that I'm sure we're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about. So um, why don't we get right into it? So let's just talk first here. Let's talk the NASCAR Cup Series makes their first international trip. Well, not first, first in a while. Trip back to Mexico. Um, I know the old tire changer was boots on the ground at a race, so I'm not sure how much you got to see of it, but um, let's just kick it off and chat. What were your initial thoughts on the Mexico race?
I guess for me, I was just obviously looking to see what the racing action was like. Um, Listening to a little bit of NASCAR radio this morning about it. It seemed like, for the most part, the rate the action was on the track. There wasn't any officiating issues with track limits. You had your guys that struggled on the road course. I'm sure we're going to talk about another instance with a couple of drivers that have previously had an issue together. Um, but I think when it came down to it, though, the guys that you thought were going to do good ultimately did do good for the little bit that I saw.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the place raced better than I anticipated. But on top of that alone, I think I would have liked to have seen it going dry the whole time instead of raining. But luckily, we were equipped to be able to run through the rain, so that was beneficial. But that wreaked havoc for a few guys in terms of a couple guys running long on slicks, but also the likes of a couple guys getting into that big rack going down into what I think it was turn one with Kyle Busch. Um, so yeah, I mean the place is fairly racy once it dried out. So, but again, kind of the cream of the crop in terms of road course racing found their way to the front, whether it be strategy or just raw speed. So, um, those guys found their way to the front either way.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want to just jump right to the conclusion of this, but clear cut favorite. I shouldn't say clear cut favorite, but one of the heavy odds favorites coming into that race or any road course is Shane Van Gisbergen, and he put it out there. Classic beatdown on um, just on the field. But that leaves us to this question of, here, I don't want to take away from the Mexico race, but NASCAR's playoff format, here we go again. We've got a guy that was 30th in points that just won a race and locked himself in.
I
And
mean, let's play the game here. Kyle Larson was 39 laps down, and he gets the point for the fastest lap of the race.
Yep.
Now, drastically different than winning a race and getting into the playoffs, but Larson is looking at that one playoff point that decided his regular season title last year, going, I will take 40 laps to fix that car, and I will go out and make laps until I get that green little stopwatch, and then I'll call it a day. Like, obviously, he finished the race, but there's a fair amount of people that were kind of grumbling about that too. But dude went out there with a wrecked race car and put on a show.
Mm-hmm. I saw a comment from Matt Weaver about that scenario in particular, and he said that is exactly why SVG was hired to race that ride, because there's 6-7 races on the year that he has a chance to win, get that team and that charter specifically into the playoffs, and get no worse than 16th place money at the end of the year in points. So in all reality, that you're bringing money into that organization.
check the box. He just did what he was hired to do.
Check the box. This dude might win multiple races yet this year.
There's a lot of road courses in the Xfinity Series last year.
There is a handful of road courses coming up. Let's not go back to the Chicago street course that the dude showed up never being in a cup car and managed to weasel his way into a win. Like, this dude is far from over on striking gold yet on this whole deal.
I mean, if you really want to dive into it, I mean, it's going to be hard to get past the round of 16 being Darlington, Worldwide Technology, and Bristol. But the round of 12, you go to the Roval in the round of 12. So you sneak your way into the round of 12. You go out and win the Roval. You're in the round of 8.
Oh, my God.
But again, that is why Trackhouse hired SVG.
Of course.
You know, a guy that is going to be ultra competitive on the road courses. Colleague did it last year with AJ Allmendinger as well. To bring in a guy that can give you the best chance of winning X amount of races.
Or a race.
Or a race, yep. And that's exactly what he did. Now, again, does that hinder the playoff deal? Yeah, but don't hit the player, hate the game.
Here's a question for you. As rough of a season as the 8 of Kyle Busch has had, would we feel differently about him winning a race than SVG winning a race?
I think it's a bigger deal. Just because we expect SVG to win at these races, and the way that Busch has been running, it would almost be not an underdog story by any means, but just a, you never thought it was going to happen again.
Okay. That's the part that I just kind of wondered in terms of, like, yes, it is a big deal, but in the same sense, like, we have guys that have been in the Cup Series long enough that have not won recently, that it's like you could have guys that do this and you're like, well, hold on. And then then it's a whole different scenario. So
yeah, and I was going to bring up too that whole 2 points is everybody knows what they're working with and everybody knows how to get themselves in, and just can't hate the player, you got to hate the game. And everybody knows what they're signing up for, and everybody knows that if you want to lock yourself in, get a win. And we all know that going into the season. So yeah, it's just the rules we play by. And like I said, do I love it? I don't love it, but it's yeah, I don't know. It's no different than the NCAA tournament in basketball, March Madness, and the first round, one seed loses to a 16. Like,
What you tune in to watch.
yeah. And so, um, no, and the last part too is the whole Larson thing. I mean, you didn't think about that being he's I think 39 laps down, 40 laps down. But dude fixed the car and went out there, and as miserable of a day as he had, dude locked himself a point. Like,
What
Yep.
what was the other race that they did that? They didn't do the fast lap, but they fixed the car to go out and run more laps. I thought there was
well,
another race that they did that.
Darlington, he's got a curse. He smashed that thing like the old
Oh
tiger,
yeah, it was. 'Cause
the
it was at
tiger.
Darlington because he got wrecked like on lap 2, and then they went back out, and he made more laps, and then he wrecked again.
Yeah. Yep.
Food for
But
thought.
yeah,
Think about this for a
um,
second.
but touching on just a little bit of the race, and just some of the surprising. I guess we'll talk. I want to talk two other headliners. I don't know if you guys saw what they did to Zane Smith. I don't for sure know what happened, but that is complete asinine what they did to him.
He was on the DVP, ran out of time. They told him he needs to go back to the DVP area about in the garage. So they cleared him to
Did,
go.
did you watch? Did you watch the onboard?
He rolled back there, he stopped, and out onto the track he went.
He's driving through the back, the DVP area. All they're opening gates. People are just walking around back in the garage area, and he's just driving through there. People just be bopping around, and some NASCAR official waves him in. He pulls into like he's gonna go in the garage, slaps it in reverse, goes right back out. And people are just walking around in there. And I'm just like,
Yeah. There was a
he had a
shit
few
show.
he had a few choice words on the radio, as you can about imagine.
Yep.
But yeah, and then not only that, but we can talk about uh tire changers um the other point he brought up is the old 71 or 77 in Kosovar. He is, if you did not see that in recent news, he is applying for dual citizenship in Mexico, to permanently live down there after Ricky said he's going to do a few things to him when they get back to the States. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we're as of 9 minutes ago, we're gonna visit him in the news section today too.
Kosovar.
Yep.
So, yeah, another racing incident.
Yeah.
And that is Ricky made it crystal clear last year at Wilkesboro.
Yeah. Ricky ain't afraid of Ricky is not afraid of nothing.
No,
So I'm gonna leave you with this thought as we kind of finish the Cup Series conversation. Trackhouse Racing has the same number of cars locked into the playoffs as Hendrick Motorsports. Trackhouse Racing has the same number of cars locked into the playoffs as Joe Gibbs Racing. The team with the most number of cars locked into the playoff is Penske. All three of their guys are locked in.
Plus the satellite fourth with Barry.
Yep. So technically they got four. Larson and Byron are your two Hendrick cars. Hamlin and Bell are your two Gibbs cars. And you have the four Penske cars. You have Shane Van Gisbergen and Ross Chastain. Are the guys that are locked in. Then you go to their number 11. Elliott's 146 up. Reddick's 123 up. Bubba's 57 to the good. Briscoe's 39 to the good. Bowman 22 to the good. Busher 19 to the good. So when you think about it, I wouldn't have thought at this point that we'd be having the conversation of Trackhouse being in the same boat in terms of cars locked into the playoffs as Hendrick.
Goes to my point exactly.
Correct.
So I want to pose a question to you guys here as well, because you're talking about one, not a surprise winner, but a low in the point standings winner going.
Yep.
So there's three stages to this. There's the SVG one where he dominated the race and
Yep.
got himself in. I think the next step down is the Josh Berry scenario. Won at Vegas, not necessarily expected, but has shown speed at ton of races this year. And then you've got last year, Harrison Burton winning at Daytona.
Yep.
So, of those three scenarios, how would you compare all those? And would you have a different opinion of somebody getting into the playoffs in each of those scenarios?
I'm just at the point that like you had to know he was going to find his way in. It was going to be him. It was going to be an all AJ Allmendinger.
Yep.
It's going to be your typical road course ringers. McDowell's not bad on road courses. Don't be surprised if he finds his way in there yet too.
Yep. He won at the Indy
So,
Road Course a handful of years ago.
so I just at some point there's going to be a slip, and the Hendrick and the Gibbs and the Penske camp aren't going to be able to win all the races the rest of the way out to keep everyone else from winning races. So, was it surprising that he won? Yeah. Did I expect it to happen at a certain point? Yep. Like, I it was the expected unexpected. Did I expect it to be this one? Not really. But you got to think with the road courses coming up, he was going to find his way in, and you have to think there are other drivers in the field that were counting on that.
Yep.
Looking at the playoff standings, going, all right, where do we sit? And when he wins a race from way down there, what does the bubble look like?
If you weren't prepared for that scenario, you're doing it all wrong.
Correct. And don't be surprised if AJ Allmendinger finds his way in there. Got wrecked early with Busch, but he's another one. He could very well go win a road course race, and that's another guy that's in there and around the bubble that you're going, okay.
Yep.
The bubble just shifted significantly again. So, yeah.
Final thoughts here. Let's just kick it. What are your final thoughts on the overall Mexico from what you could gather, experience, I guess everything from down there to back to the race. What's your guys' overall thoughts on the Mexico?
Kellen, you can go first. I'm counting something real quick.
Needs a little logistical help, but I think that gets alleviated if you go back. And I'm talking travel of cruising drivers, seeing the bits and pieces of the nightmare of getting some of the Xfinity teams down there, having to move Xfinity practice to Saturday. Some of it you can't predict, some of it you can, but I think doing it again alleviates some of those issues that they're going to go, okay, if we're scheduled to practice on Thursday, or Friday, we're going to send guys down on Wednesday that if something happens, they're there on Thursday and we don't have to change the schedule. So, racing part, I don't think I would change much in terms of that, other than, like I said, just hoping to be dry. But yeah, I just think some of the aches and pains come with just figuring out the logistical part of it, that I think that alleviates itself doing it again. But NASCAR has obviously said that they're not fully committed just yet. So,
And
Yeah, I
to
think.
that,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, to that point, there are 6 road courses on the schedule right now, which I think is a perfect number. Doesn't need to be any higher, doesn't need to be lower. Could we switch the courses? Yes, because I still think we should go to Road America. I had to get that plug in there. But I also don't think we need to be going to Mexico every year either.
no, not every year.
So could we make that a rotational thing? All right, maybe if we go to 5 road courses, make everybody happy. We go to 5 road courses, we keep our traditional. Well, even then, yeah, it'd still be 5 because we'd keep Watkins, Glen, and Sonoma. Those are your 2 bona fide ones.
Yep.
We've got Circuit Americas, which I think with the new course layout has worked.
Yep.
We have a street course race, I'll just say, whether it's Chicago or whatever rumored ones that they have, and have a rotational Canada, Mexico, even doing every other year scenario.
Fair.
Because you open the door from, okay, we've done it in Mexico, know what we need to do, hopefully fix the logistical aspect of it wise as well, and maybe get up to Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Fair.
think overall, I think like you said, racing product, I thought it was a decent race for a road course race. I thought
We
overall
can't
that it was
we
I thought
cannot
good.
go Michigan to Mexico though.
No.
When I
Correct.
talk
And
logistics,
that's
we
yeah,
cannot go Michigan to Mexico. We have to go Texas to Mexico, Phoenix to Mexico. That
yeah.
goes back to
So
the
that's
logistics part.
yeah. And like you said, you can't predict everything. Like racing wise, I thought it was a good race. I for a road course, I actually enjoyed it. Unique track. Um, but the logistics of it just felt like, yeah, a challenge. And you can't say you don't. There's going to be challenges doing this for the first time in a while, but I felt like some of this is like self-inflicted challenge. Like we did this to ourselves. Like
Yep.
so,
Um, just because I'm also a big fan of doing double headers with another series, I'm looking at the IndyCar schedule. Two scenarios play out here. One of them you can knock out, well, both of them you can knock out two birds with one stone. Uh, First one, if you want to get to Canada, IndyCar races on the streets of Toronto. So you do a doubleheader with IndyCar. There you go. They also race in oh, that's in California. I saw Monterey and I thought Mexico. So never mind on that one. But Toronto, you get up to Canada, you can knock out your street course on a well-established street course.
yeah,
Yep.
and, yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of good feedback from teams and the organization that they can, if they do this again, and wherever they go, they can make it a little bit smoother and easier on the teams.
Yep.
One more final thought. I think drivers learned what to do and not to do in Mexico, as you heard a couple guys were not feeling well on Sunday.
Hey,
Correct.
yep.
Yep.
So
Fair share of
That's
them.
yeah, for sure.
Cool. Any other final thoughts on the Mexico race?
No.
I'm good.
Okay. Um, let's cross back into the border and head all the way back north to the great state of Wisconsin and make the long haul to our backyard. We had two ASA Stars National Tour races in the great state of Wisconsin this weekend. And let's kick things off here and let's talk Friday afternoon. Um, and let's talk Madison International Speedway. It didn't take long for us to have some action and get some blood pressure revved up, but yeah, let's just talk Stars National Tour at Madison. And I know where we're gonna start here. Not gonna mess around and we'll start right in practice. And I guess I'll just get to it. George Phillips and the Derek Kraus incident. Um, from what I've seen,
Here,
heard, and read, go ahead.
here's what I'm going to tell you because the wreck happened about, call it 30 feet in front of us. We were standing on the fence, right, like no joke, right in front of us.
The only way you could have gotten closer is if you moved down the grandstands.
There was one little set of bleachers in the corner where you're standing at the very top. It happened, I'm not joking, 30 feet in front of us. I kind of saw it coming, and I saw said individual come hauling off into one. And I said, that seems weird. Took the red checkers at the start finish line. The lights were on around the track. And then you just watched him haul off and tear the right side off of one race car and the left off the other. And I looked at Cam and I said, there's no way I just saw that happen.
Yeah. And I mean, it just
I couldn't believe it. It was in practice. And on top of that, you could clearly see the 9 gave, yes, the 9 was coming off of the track, but there was also 2 to 2.5 lanes below the 9 that if the 22 makes the corner, just makes the corner, like any other lap he had made prior in the day, we don't have to have this conversation.
Yep.
He had that thing locked up and backwards or sideways at 90 degrees where he hit the right front to the left rear of the 9. That
Yep.
radio transmission, not great. Didn't sound good. I can promise you that.
Yep.
But you have the 3rd fastest car in practice go off on the record in practice when the session was officials session is complete.
Lights are on, flag's been wove,
Correct.
let it off at the line.
It's a half-mile track. Like, it's not hide the fact that, like, when you qualify, any other time you qualify a super there, you can cross the line at speed and still make the pit ramp without any issues, knowing there's still a car coming behind you.
Yep.
I know. I actually couldn't, when I stood there, I couldn't actually believe what I just saw. I said, no shot. And you just hear on the radio, it's junk. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. That was crazy. That was wild to me. I feel like that kind of set the tone to a certain degree for the night. Is that a way to say it? So we got that whole thing situated. Obviously, the 9 and the 22 both presented cars, got through tech.
9 qualified
In order, and good on them for having a car, being able to get a car down and get ready to go. Smaller team, good for them to be able to present in order. The 22 did not. He did not present in order. So he
for the Donnie Wilson camp.
Started at tail. Yep. Qualified, and then from there, guys were gonna head out. Guys were not gonna head out. Guys were on the track. Cars were on the track.
Yep.
What was going on? No one really seemed to know what. And then the PA said, get off the racetrack, and guys want out. I don't know. It just, to a certain degree, felt a little unorganized. Nobody knew what was going on. Like, ASA drivers wanted out of the infield. Don't blame them, because you're qualifying your weekly guys, which obviously the track is taking care of them, and as they should.
Yep.
But let's take 2 minutes and let the Stars guys out of the infield. Well, that leads to the next part of this, the autograph session.
Yeah, which was immediately after that local qualifying.
So they have the autograph session, and kind of 2 pieces to that is they let the fans in, and there's not a single driver at the cars for the autograph session. So the first 10 minutes was just drivers getting in. And on top of that, you have crews setting up their pit boxes in the infield. You have 4-wheelers and pit carts and fuel and tire racks and everything going around, lines of kids, children, fans going in between cars, in and out of cars
that aren't paying attention to crews doing whatever.
So I just felt clustered. It felt rushed. It felt unorganized to a certain degree. That I don't know. I didn't want to be standing in front of a pit cart. I didn't have a choice. So, like, you're standing in line for a guy from Florida and Stephen Nasty. You won't get to see, but there's a pit cart coming behind me, and I'm like, watch your heels.
Yep.
Like, I get it, they're on a time schedule, but let's give yourself a 5-minute buffer to do that and let the pit carts in and then let the people in.
Yep. Let the drivers get back out too.
Yeah, you as a fan, you kind of felt like you were standing in the way a little bit. Like, you don't want to be in the way of the crews, but like the time is designated for a fan autograph session. So like what gives?
Yep.
And there's nothing worse than not that those guys are, well, I'm not gonna say that, but there's nothing worse than being in the way of somebody like that before a race like that, where they understand it's a autograph session and hopefully, the drivers are understanding of that. But also when you're trying to get your stuff in there, you're trying to get your pit box set up, you're getting ready for go 250 laps around that place. Like drivers and crews I hate to say it, but like they're doing the autograph session because they have to. They're starting to get themselves right and ready for the race. And
And the drivers were great.
yeah,
Drivers were great.
but yeah, I just, as a fan, it's, as an, like us, like you said, Kellen, you don't want to be a fan in there and you're like, feel like you're in the way or you're a nuisance to the driver and the team.
I watched the same individual almost get run over by 2 race cars in the pits at the same point.
An individual who travels with the team.
Almost got, I am not joking. Car had to almost lock him up to not hit this said individual. I was in disbelief. It's chaos.
Again, and this individual, knowing the team that they were associated with, travels to a lot of these races and should know head on a swivel. And that was the thing, though, with the autograph session. You get parents and kids that they're not in the pits all the time. They don't go in the pits like we do. So they don't know, I guess, the etiquette of,
Head on a
stay close to
swivel.
buildings, don't walk in drive lanes, head on a swivel. Like,
Yeah.
it put
Don't
people in
walk right
bad
down the middle of
positions.
the chute coming out into the track.
Yeah. It put people in bad positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, let's not to totally shift gears, but let's get into, after the whole autograph session and practice debacle, let's get into the 250 laps around Madison. And I think we knew heading into that 250 laps it was going to be a race of attrition, and boy did we have just that. And
Started early.
real
Lap
early.
13. Never did find out what happened to Majeski, but lap 13. What was he running? P2?
Yep.
Just pulled up lame on the backstretch, made it around to the quarter mile, and that was the end of it.
Supposedly it was a rocker.
Okay.
At least that's what I heard on the radio.
Okay. That was kind of the start of it. I mean, a
Steckley
lot of,
bowed out too early with a suspension issue.
Sutton had motor issues.
Yep.
Sauter was front suspension ish. Ball joint is what I had heard.
Yep.
So those guys broke early, but I think really when you talk about mechanical issues, and I've never seen this happen, was the way Fenhouse broke.
Oh, I mean, he got the axle broke is what ended up happening.
Your axle tube, yeah.
But you usually see that sucker break as you're coming out and hit the throttle. That sucker broke halfway down the backstretch.
Full speed.
Yep.
Wide open. And when it came off, the hub went with the wheel and tire. pulled the axle out of the rear end, like, and then you're just along for the ride.
And you saw this amazing photo. Fenhouse is already starting to slide sideways, and you could just see his tire go in front of him.
Yep. Yeah.
I even heard on the radio, Fenhouse's spotter come on the radio after he wrecked, sitting there, and crew comes up to him and says, "Well, I know why you wrecked. That's your left rear tire sitting in front of you."
Yeah. And unfortunately, that he had a rocket ship of a race car.
Yep.
And talk about it in the next one too. He had two really fast race cars.
And that took some guys out. Kraus ended up in it. That ultimately hurt his handling of the car. Nason was in it, was able to keep going, but that took Derek Thorne out. It took Fenhouse out.
Michelle was in there.
Michelle was in there. Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was a matter of attrition, really, right? And Carson Brown was
Oh, he had
fast.
fast car. Yep.
He was fast. I just don't know if he was Gabe Summers, Luke Fenhouse fast.
Fenhouse dipping out of that just about sealed it for him.
Yeah. No, Fredrickson and who else is behind him? Who finished second? Freddie. They were going to give him a run for his money because they had a chance on a late race restart.
Nason was fourth. Butcher was second.
Butcher. So they had a shot at him, but he just that car was lights out fast.
Yeah. And again, deservedly so. You know, who's to say what would have happened if, Summers doesn't break, or not Summers, Fenhouse doesn't break, ends up being up front there for that one at the end.
Summers another guy. Led a bunch of laps early, had a really fast race car, and just something broke in the rear of the car, and that was the end of the night for him. So, yeah, just kind of a war of attrition. Ultimately, 7 cars finished the race.
Yeah. Just rough.
Yeah.
Sorry, 8. 8 cars.
8 cars did.
Yep.
And so I guess I'll pose this question to you guys. You guys are a little bit more well versed. I don't want to say that's exactly what we expected going to Madison, but we know 250 laps around that place is tough on equipment.
200 laps is brutal.
And
yeah.
And so you know it's going to be in a war, a race of attrition. You got to hopefully your stuff holds up, but I don't know if this was abnormally bad or what. But I guess what's your thoughts on at the end of the race you're watching? You're like, got 8 cars going around the track, and I don't want to be rude, but it's like this is kind of like watching those 8 crazy carts on Flow Racing on a Monday night. Like 8.
The hard part is you got a lot of guys that had motor issues.
Yep.
Like,
and that
it wasn't like we were even really wrecking race cars together. It was just one after another. We just obviously Fenhouse has his debacle. Sommers has something break in the rear of his car. Pincinel has motor issues. Steckley, just a war of attrition.
you had 9 guys dip out just because of an engine or mechanical issue.
Yep.
Total start of the race was what? 19?
21.
21?
21 for Madison. Yep. And even before that wreck, you were sitting on 11 cars on track. Before that wreck.
That kind of comes to the conversation of how many in 2023, how many cars did the Sheer have for the national tour?
38?
38, 39.
Somewhere around there. High.
The likes of Stephen Nasse went home. Right? Like,
well, Pollard was there.
When you look at this event, speaking of Bubba Pollard, another guy, when we talk about guys that were not there, Bubba Pollard's one that was on part of the Platinum program. He did not make the trip north this year. Your rolling ranking number 1 ranked super late model driver did not enter either event in Casey Johnson. When I looked at the list, you could say give or take. No, there's some guys in this list that are more weekly guys or guys that have ventured out less frequently, but you could say I counted 30 between 30 and 36 cars up here that did not make an appearance at either racetrack.
Yeah.
No, Midwest Tour has races coming weekend, so does that play into it? Yeah, for sure. Big time.
For the record, 38 was the official count in 2023.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just looking at the list and you go down the list and there's guys that have traditionally run these races when you talk about Bilderback, DeAngelis, Storm, Gady, Stenjum, Zier, Schaefer, Johnson, Farrell, Moan, Hoffman. I mean, the list, Bobby Kendall made that race in 2023. Just looking down the list, there's a wild list of guys that could have been very competitive, but looking at the attrition of it, I believe they made a very good decision. So, yeah, wild.
Here's the thing, though, too, is that why. Here, I'm going to look at this. And it's not just the Midwest either. You raced at Dominion earlier in the year. You had 20 cars for that one. Hickory, you had 20 cars for that one. Sorry, 20 cars for that one. Newport, he had 16 for that one. So it's not just a Midwest thing. What is it that ASA cannot draw in any local drivers to run? For those that are listening, he did the old money sign.
And that's my guess. Yeah.
Well, just okay. So if you know if it's a money issue, where's the issue? What's being done to be able to help that to increase your car counts?
Yeah. When you look at the list of guys that we mentioned, super competitive guys on very small teams, not Donnie Wilson or Anthony Campy type teams. Do I blame them for not showing up? Absolutely not. And that's power to them to say no. And it's good for them. But when you talk about that conversation, if you don't go practice on this, if you don't go mock on a set of stickers, you're not going to know what your car has for a mock. If you don't bolt on a set of stickers for qualifying to put on to go in and race, you're already behind the 8 ball. Like, we're talking that alone in just tires before you start talking about fuel purchases, before you start talking about getting your crew in.
Pit passes and just
right. And you know, that event in 2023 with those 38 cars, like probably one of the highest car counts since ASA came back.
I remember looking at it. I think it was either the second or third highest car count.
So yeah, I don't know. It's
the highest one this year is 31, and that was at New Smyrna, but that was in the middle of speed weeks.
Yeah.
Five Flags, you had 28, and then it drops down from there.
Yep.
So
I don't know. Some adjusting in conversation, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, like what, the Midwest Tour is under the ASA banner. We don't run a co-sanctioned race. Southern Super Series, it's not a coincidence that most times your Southern Super Series champ will have a very good crack at your National Tour Championship.
Yep.
Vice versa. So that's the hard part of like they're under the same banner, but we don't run co-sanctioned events anymore.
There's one obvious reason for that. One big reason for it. It's the carburetor.
Yep.
But that aside, what other reason is there?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely more to the story.
So, and I've got a couple of Slinger points that we'll bring up once we get to the Slinger part. Because I've got some thoughts there as well.
Let's head into it.
Let's just briefly, I don't know if anybody has I mean, like you said, only 8 cars finished the race, but ultimately, Carson Brown.
Yeah, I've got the lineup if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, just
Yep.
just rattle off the top five or so.
Top five: Carson Brown, Cole Butcher, Ty Fredrickson, Stephen Assey, and Casey Klein were your top five for that one.
Like I
Yep.
said, only 8 cars finished, so if you made all the laps, you're getting top 10, which is weird to say. But if you don't have any other final thoughts, let's go a little bit southeast here. Um, is it southeast? It's got to be.
Oh,
That's
straight east.
straight east.
Yep.
All right, I guess let's go straight east. Yeah, it's got to be a little bit south. Uh,
This isn't geography.
Yeah. My
anyways,
geography, my
either way,
geography was in circles.
we're staying in Wisconsin, and we had a little Sunday night cap for us for our Father's Day show at Slinger, the second race um, at sorry, second race of the doubleheader weekend for the ASA Stars at um, Slinger. So let's get into. I don't know where you guys want to start. Um,
I
Oh,
mean, just really quick, as we kind of mentioned it, no weekly drivers
yep.
or no
And
no super late. So yes, Madison doesn't run super late miles for points. Slinger does. Those guys said, "Yeah, no, we're good." Don't blame them. Again, a little bit of attrition in this race, but don't blame them. So we had 19 cars on property, correct?
19 on property. Yep.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I mean, I was there, and I think show was definitely smoother.
It was smoother. It was just there was a ton of downtime between practice and they ran practice, they qualified the support divisions, and then after the support divisions qualified, there was an hour and a half of downtime before ASA qualified. ASA then qualified. They ran the support division future races and then lined everybody up for the autograph session, opening ceremony, stuff like that, which was 2 hours.
I say they qualified at
Thought it was 4 o'clock they qualified.
4 o'clock because the stream I clicked on the stream at like 4:03, and they were 5 or 6 cars in already.
Which it's not hard to do at Slinger.
No, but I'm just saying, in retrospect, like they were on time on the dot in terms of they said 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. Yep.
He had cars out, if not 5 minutes prior. So yeah, I mean, really, just kind of from there, it just jumps into the race. I mean, the Midwest guys qualified well, and
Yeah. And
I think
then
you expected that.
yep, I expected that. And the other thing with that though too was threw a curveball in there. Bob Sargent got up on stage during driver intros, which Bob doesn't he doesn't get out there. He stays behind the scenes, he takes care of the stuff in the pits, doesn't get on stage. So when he does, he means something. I don't think it was planned to offer Majeski the ultimate challenge.
Well, when they interviewed him pre-race, they said if a lot of the Midwest Tour races they offer a bounty. You start at the tail and there's extra money. Would you do that tonight if it was out there? And Ty goes, "Do you know something I don't?"
Yep.
And I
So
think in that interview they tipped him off.
yep. And so Noodleman and Majeski had that time to think about it,
About 3 minutes total.
probably.
Yeah. I mean, you had to think he was going to.
So uh which I mean he qualified a whole tenth faster than Fenhouse did. So
Yep.
that says anything. But he's also a three-time winner of that race, so that's not surprising as well. Um, yeah, but once you got in the race, first stage it was kind of the ride it out stage. Guys kind of got settled in. Majeski made his way up a little bit, kind of picked him off as they were given to him. Um, First stage pretty much went off without a hitch. Got to the first stage break without any issues. Um, that's when the strategy play came into effect, but it was also, and this is maybe the gripe that I'm going to have. Well, one of the gripes I'm going to say with this race, there were so many controlled cautions.
Yeah.
We're at one point in time, and I forget what stretch it was, but we ran like 3 green flag laps. Right after we had a controlled caution, ran 3 green flag laps, and then we had another controlled caution because one car went into the pits.
Yeah.
So it's just I felt like we dragged it out
Right.
in that sense. But
Yeah.
the racing itself from that I thought was typical Slinger fashion. I mean, the outside worked a little bit. Some guys were actually passing on the outside. So there was definitely 2 grooves at the track, which was great for Slinger.
Yep.
But again, you had your attrition with that race as well. Uh, Carson Brown went out early, 102, and that one, he actually smacked the wall. That's what happened with him.
Yep.
Kind of tail slapped it, and he bent the rear end and basically the rear end is basically what he did. Um, and then Sommers, he had something in the suspension brake originally. I was gonna try and send you guys a video, and I just couldn't. If you looked at the front end of that car, it was literally teetering. You could almost put it on a seesaw, and that's what it looked like. And you could see the right rear bouncing up and down
Yep.
into there. I mean, and Sommers was hot.
I mean, but that's 2 very fast race cars for him that DNFs,
Yep.
and let's jump to the 4 car, same scenario.
Oh man.
2 weekends had very fast race cars and led laps in both races, and
And wrecked 2 race cars.
he's got 2 DNFs. Unfortunately,
And I could tell he was very disappointed. I was listening to the radio after he stopped, which, for those that don't know, he wasn't pinched, but basically slapped the wall, sucked him back in, and just rode it basically.
yep.
He didn't say a single thing when he got on there when he finally stopped.
Yep.
Didn't even tell the crew he was all right. He just dropped the window net, took the helmet off, climbed out, and just walked around the car. Tell he's
Yep.
very disappointed, and he should, and rightfully so, because he had a bad fast car.
He did on Friday night. Take that with it too, of having 2 really fast race cars, and
Yep.
yeah. But Nason was another one. Ended up in a little bit of trouble.
And he took the blame for that one. He just got
He was
sprayed
racing.
before, and
He was racing with Michelle, I think
yeah.
it was, and I think Michelle said in his interview, Mason came up to him and apologized. Said he got a little water, got on the inside, caught a little water, and he said Mason said the wheel completely came out of his hands. He lost it and ended up running him up the track. Took the blame for it, but that was another guy that was another strong car that would have been interesting to see what he would have done down the stretch there at the end.
And
Had
Nason was
he,
making his way up too.
yeah, and that's
Yep.
just slow and steady, picking them off and getting up front. And would have been interesting to see throw that 14 car in the mix there at the end in some of those late race restarts and see um, a guy that just seems to be solid wherever he goes. See what would have happened, see what he could have done there at the end.
Yep. After a few more cautions, that big wreck with Steckley, who the hell else was in that one? Ultimately, the one that got Phillips, Thorne was in it a little bit.
Yep.
Casey Klein was in it. A couple of
Yep.
guys were in that one that took a few more guys out. And when it came down to it, though, I mean, it was Majeski had finally worked his way back up to the front, and it was going to be him and Butcher battling it out. And I tell you what, though, that last, and you guys saw it too as well, that last couple of restarts, Majeski got a really good jump and was able to fight Butcher, raced him, I mean, about as hard as you could race a guy without wrecking a guy, and just Butcher just had the car.
Yeah.
And you could, in I mean, that whole from the view or from the broadcast, I mean, we had within one frame, we had 2 fantastic battles going on. You had Butcher and Majeski going at it for the lead, and literally right behind them, you had Kraus and Nasty going at it for third. And yeah, it was just interesting. You could tell Butcher was just a little bit better than Majeski,
Yep.
and
Well,
you
so
just tell
after
he
that,
had a better equip. His car was a little bit better, but you can't ever in this asphalt super late model race, you can never count out Ty Majeski.
and
And
they after that last break, after that last stage break, they had interviewed. I'll go like this, and I quote interviewed Toby about what the car is doing, and he did not say a single word. All he did was shake his head.
Listening to the radio, car was overheating. So I bet you that engine was a little down on power.
Yep.
and you saw that at the when they came in and pit at the end of the stage. I said, I mean, did they grab a fan or jet engine from a Boeing when they popped that hood? I mean, Toby had fans on that thing
Yep.
left and right, every direction. In the front, pop the hood, three fans on the inside. Yeah, um it was nuts. But I will say, I think it was the caution with 10 to go. We had a 3 lap run there. Um, and I actually thought, and this could be blind faith in me, but um, I actually felt like Kraus had a car that he could have got up there, and I think him and Butcher could have raced it out. I thought Kraus was a little bit better than Majeski, if I'm going to be
I
honest.
Yep, I could agree with that, but I think that when that restart ultimately hurt him.
Yep.
The one with 10 to go, when he got around Nassie, and
Yep.
I felt like he was running Majeski down and Butcher, and those two were banging, and it was like, dude, you're in the catbird seat. These two are going to get together, go right on by him, and you got yourself another win. But then that second restart with 7 to go, he was on the bottom, and he's behind Majeski. And I get choosing the bottom, because you have to think Majeski's going to use up Butcher as much as he possibly can, which he did. But just that last restart, yeah, he wasn't as great of a restart for him, and just he was racing hard with Nassie the rest of the night, and um, ultimately never got passed by Nassie, and never was able to recover in those 7 laps. But it's another guy that Kraus was for the weekend he had just a solid weekend.
Good
And
salvage.
correct. And I know we're Kraus homers, but I feel like in his as Kellen's got a shirt on and a door in the background, um, and a pair of shoes. Um, I just feel like he's somebody that he's going to be solid. Like you put him in that 4 to 8 range, like consistently, and I feel like he does a good job. He knows when he works on his own stuff, his family deal. He's not going to tear stuff up. He's not going to do reckless stuff. He's just going to be solid. He's going to be there at the end, and he's going to give himself a shot. And he did just that. And yeah, it was. I was hoping and praying he was going to get a shot at it, but um, yeah. And like you mentioned, Cam, that it was interesting that the outside lane. I felt like Kraus had a couple restarts earlier where he chose the outside, and that was the preferred. I felt like that was the preferred line.
So I actually walked when I went down to the interview or for the on track autograph session. I didn't go down the front stretch. I actually went through the pits and I went down the track that way. And I did that. I went with Jim just because one, we didn't want to deal with the people at the front gate. But two, it gave me an opportunity. I hit that top lane on the way down the banking and I didn't feel any sticky. So it's worn in, but it's worn in good
Yep.
where that outside's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and some of those restarts, I mean, Kraus was on some of those restarts. When he was on the outside, he led fair share of laps there on Sunday too. He started on the outside, and he looked good on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he was a control car, but he looked solid on the outside. But um, yeah, I was just gonna give him a shout out. Solid day for him on Sunday and salvaged what was a nightmare that started early Friday afternoon.
Yep.
Couple thoughts here real quick. One, with that package, Majeski was interviewed and said that the difference between the rules and the tire package are not much different than what the Slinger Nationals are, which I found very interesting,
Okay.
but also doesn't help the fact that, okay, if it's similar to what the Slinger Nationals are, why weren't there more guys there to run that race? I think one guy in particular, or one group of guys in particular, would be the Prunties, who
Yep.
are literally up the road. I actually found out where their shop is at. They're 10 miles down the road, maybe,
Yep.
and they weren't there. I saw Dennis walking around, but that was
Steve
it.
April.
Yep, Steve Apel, another Slinger guy. But the other thing with that too is that, yes, was the car count not there? Yes, but you also had 18 cars at Milwaukee last year. Same setup, Madison Friday. This time it was Milwaukee Sunday. You had 18 cars on a mile track
Yep.
versus, which, Kellen, you saw or watched that race last year,
Yep.
versus 19 cars, 18 cars in reality on a quarter mile track. And
Yep.
I think that quarter mile track at Slinger was a much better entertainment value than it was Milwaukee.
100%.
Milwaukee got all sorts of stringed out and or strung out, and if you had a fast car, you were gone, and you were going to be tough to catch. You get guys playing the aero game, and yeah, but
So I like the ASA at Slinger. Don't mind if they keep it there.
yep,
Got to find a way to get weekly guys.
yep. Gotta find a way to get the weekly guys at Slinger, and you gotta find a way to pull your guys that run well at the shear to Madison on Friday night.
Yep.
You got to double dip them somehow, and it's just figuring out how to get them there.
Yeah. So ultimately, I don't have the top five, but I'm ultimately Butcher outduels Majeski. He wins it. Solid weekend for Butcher. Majeski finishes second. Stephen Nassie finishes third. Majeski fourth, and then
Kraus fourth.
Carlos
Kraus fourth, and then
Gavin Boschall was fifth.
Michelle somehow comes out of there with the top five. So
yeah.
any other final thoughts on the ASA?
Real
I-
quick, I know you guys watch it out, Kellen. I think we're thinking the same thing. There was
Yep.
two. I saw that Father Bruba was being interviewed.
Yes.
I heard that, and I never saw it, but Deem Strom was also interviewed. How were those?
Awesome. They were really good job by the track TV crews to do those. It just added an element of like uniqueness and specialty to it. Being that those are two guys that are very special to that place and they played into that very well. So those interviews were awesome. I wasn't expecting that. And like, oh, we've got a special production. And I'm like, wow. But those were very well done. Very special, both in their own unique ways, being two very different individuals. But awesome job. Well done to the track TV crew for doing that and putting that together. So
Also, Kellen, can't wait for you to come back for the Nationals this year.
yep.
They added a little building to the grandstands next to us.
Got it.
Quick spot to get a beverage, as some would say.
Oh, big thumbs up on that one. Yeah. I'm excited to get back for the Nationals. Speaking of Nationals, Nasty will be back. Said he's coming back.
uh Learned at Madison. Sounds like Thorne's trying to work his way back.
Yep.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say is the watching those two races on track TV, boy, did they do their job and ingrained in your brain. El Bandito Yankee Tequila in Appalachian Sucker Punch ASA Stars National Tour. So if they had a shot to get that in there, they did that, and I feel like I'm still going to bed that saying with those two things bringing me nightmares. The El Bandito Yankee Tequila sponsored event in Appalachian Sucker Punch. And then it made it even worse that the 96 that Derek Thorne was driving was sponsored by Appalachian Sucker Punch. And then they played that damn commercial. Oh, yeah. Have you tried pina colada? Yeah, I'm trying pina colada for the first time, and it feels like I'm on the beach. I mean, if they played that commercial once, they played it 14 times. So, anyways, needless to say, took that away from the weekend. Track TV does a good job hitting their sponsors or advertising because we got
It makes you want to go buy a bottle, doesn't it?
yeah, El Bandito Yankee Tequila and Appalachian Sucker Punch. Just
Rolls right off the tongue.
yeah, I feel like you can throw that on anything after this
El
weekend.
Bandito.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm crying.
Anyways,
All
any
right,
other final
let's-
thoughts on the Midwest there or
No,
the ASA Stars in Wisconsin?
We need to keep those two events.
Yeah,
I think we need to keep them. I mean, yes, is there attrition with both of them? Yes. Are you going
Can
from
we
a
get
half
the
mile
local
to a quarter
guys?
mile? Yes, we need to get our local guys involved in some fashion. I don't know how to do that, but we need to get our guys there.
We can make that okay to good to great
In a hurry.
in a hurry.
In a real hurry. So, yeah, for sure. Hope they
Cool.
come back next year.
Yes. All right, then let's go to a fairly short news section and hit on just some news here. So I'll hit the first two and then you guys can divide and conquer the last couple there. But first, NASCAR and Flow Sports announced they will contribute an extra $50,000 to the purse for the Virginia Triple Crown, which includes the Valley Star Credit Union at Martinsville. So ultimately, the champ will take home 20,000, second will take home 10, third will take home 7,500, and fourth will be 5,000. So always a huge event, and so NASCAR getting involved there and throwing some extra money in that race. So good news there. Switching over to some dirt super late models here. Longhorn Chassis and Stucker Enterprises announced a strategic partnership to quote unquote further propel strategic innovation and performance in dirt racing. So Longhorn and Stucker Enterprises doing a little bit of merging and ultimately gonna help each other out and try to ultimately get better. So those are my two news bullet points for this week.
Cam, go ahead.
Midwest racer Ty Fredrickson will race for Venerini Motorsports at Elko this coming weekend. He'll miss the ASA Midwest Tour race, but he'll race at Elko, obviously his home track for Venerini. Obviously looking forward to see how he does with that one, kind of getting his first bigger national exposure, I guess you could say. So looking forward to that. And then some sponsorship news for this weekend as well. Rico Abreu will have Kubota Tractors jump on as a sponsor for Huset's this weekend. That'll include the Huset's Hustle on Wednesday and Thursday, and then the High Bake Nationals on Friday and Saturday. So Kubota really dipping their toes and being involved in the racing scene. Rico and his package said that him and his family have used Kubota Tractors for years on their vineyards. Seems like a match made in heaven if I see it.
Yep. And that car is sharp looking too. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on the social media. That thing is the black and orange and the white is sweet. Last one for this segment. This came out as of 40 minutes ago. Carson Hocevar has been given an internal penalty from Spire Motorsports stemming from some comments made on a iRacing Twitch stream. So he's been fined $50,000, and that $50,000 will be split and sent to 3 Mexico charities. Spire is also requiring him to take cultural sensitivity training as well. So This is not coming from NASCAR. This is solely coming internally from Spire Motorsports. So they had consulted with NASCAR a little bit, but ultimately Spire was the one that handed down the penalty and not NASCAR.
So he put out a statement yesterday already.
Yeah, he knew he dookied up.
Did you guys see the full quote of what he said?
I read it. I don't remember it, but I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
You want me to repeat it or no?
Just that he knew that his comments weren't right, and he learned what really, what Mexico City and the Mexican culture is like.
Yeah.
Just, yep.
That's a quick paraphrasing as to he was backpedaling already.
Yep.
On that learning curve.
That and Ricky's waiting for him somewhere too, probably at Pocono.
Yep.
In those amazing shorts.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's get into giving out an award. Let's give out the Wheelman of the Week award here. And yeah, kind of I don't want to say we had just any glaring I should say this is the first time I feel like I don't have an idea of where anybody's
Not
going to go.
consensus.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll let one of you guys take the first. Let one of you guys kick it off, and I'll chime in here at the end.
I guess
Yeah.
I'll take the first two here.
Yep.
James McFadden is finally back in the States, and he wins his first start in the States with the NARC 410 sprint cars out west on Wednesday night. So obviously, I'm sure he'll be running some high limit races here in the future. Wouldn't be surprised if he's at Houston's this weekend. But James McFadden showing that he hasn't lost his touch.
Yeah, back to back. He went Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I can't remember, but he won in his first two starts back to back. So it's two.
And then second here, stemming from the Slinger race on Sunday, Cole Butcher holds off really hard fought attacks from Majeski to win his first race or win at Slinger in his first race there. That's following a second place finish at Madison on Friday as well.
Yep. Next to SVG wins the cup race at Mexico City by 16 seconds. That is the second largest margin of victory in the Cup Series with that win. And then Daniel Suarez comes from did not qualify, crashed qualifying, starts at the tail and ends up winning the Xfinity Series race at Mexico. So good win for him. Obviously, a very popular driver with his Hispanic heritage. So cool to see him win the Xfinity Series race. Not only win it, but from the tail.
And then I'll chime in and take this last one. Corey Day wins at Knoxville, just absolutely ripping the top side, doing what he always does. So he gets a big Knoxville win this past weekend. So now is your time to cast your vote.
I guess I'll cast mine first here. Just knowing the history that this driver has at this particular racetrack and then the fact that somebody beat him at it, I'm going to go with Butcher.
Okay. I am going to flip the script a little bit, and I'm going to go with McFadden. Are we going to have our first three-way split?
Or is Cam going to be the ultimate deciding factor this time around?
So yeah, there's two going through my mind.
Is one of those two one that we haven't mentioned?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Really?
I guess here's what I'm down to. I think you could give it to Butcher for the entirety of his weekend, ultimately coming up to the Midwest, getting a second place on Friday night. And then, like you said, outdoing Majeski and the Midwest guys is a testament to him.
Okay.
The other one I was thinking is, come on, I've been talking Mexico. I was thinking about giving it to mi amigo Suarez to wreck that thing in practice, go shotgun on the field, and go back home and drive right through the field and ultimately get a win.
Okay. So we've got two for sure that are knocked out.
So we're figuring this out at a three-way split in real time.
Yeah.
Suarez, any biters?
Not particularly.
Not for me.
All right, then it's going to Butcher.
All right.
All right.
Is he our third two-time winner?
Hold please.
I believe he is.
Yes.
He's our third two-time winner. He joins Kyle Larson and Jonathan Davenport as the other two.
Yeah. I mean, again, just holding off Majeski, a three-time Slinger Nationals winner, at his own game essentially in his first start racing there.
Tough to do.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
You want
We're
me
gonna
to
cover.
hop in? You want me to hop in any winners from this past week or
Either I or I can do it real quick.
Yeah, jump in there, somebody. But it's a lot of rain, actually.
Yeah, I'll hop in here because I got it pulled up already. Um, Buddy Colfoyd wins big with the high limit series, 5,000 or $55,555. You saw Corey Day absolutely wreck it from the top like he always does. Grant Griesbach wins the first race in the red, white, and blue racing series. He's on a roll in the super late this year.
Yep.
The aforementioned Carson Brown win the ASA race at Madison. Ma Nature had a hell of a week this week. David Gravel won the first race at Knoxville for this World Outlaws. Trayton Lapsevich won the Arkham Nards race at Berlin. And then Trevor Huddleston won the Arkham Nards West race at Kevin Harvick's Kern County. Minnie Tyrell gets back into victory lane with the car's late model stock at Dominion Raceway. Cody Swanson won the USAC Silver Crown race at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Justin Bonsignor won the NASCAR Wheelman Modified race at Riverhead. Bryce Lucius won the first, or no, sorry, the first night of Ohio Speed Weeks, which is actually the second. First night got canceled by My Nature at Millstream. A little heads up, he also won at Wayne County yesterday as we record. George Russell won the Formula One race at Canada. Kyle Kirkwood won the IndyCar race at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Keeps it at only two winners so far on the season. And then the AF Course Ferrari wins the 24 Hours of Le Mans this year. So Ferrari has gone back to back in the 24 hours this year.
Nice.
and tire changer. Keep on rolling. You're first on some race previews. Let's hit on
Oh, sure.
some race previews that we're going to be paying attention to this coming weekend.
Yeah, so the schedule is out on our socials if you're looking for the full race schedule, but highlighting a couple of them here. Sprint cars, I mentioned it earlier with Rico Abreu, but Huset's has got big money all week. They got the Huset's Hustle, which results in $100,000 to win on Thursday, and then it's $250,000 to win on Saturday, all at Huset's. And then USAC Sprint Cars and the All-Star Circuit of Champs run all week long. USAC is in the was supposed to start the Easter Storm. First race got postponed or canceled. They're in the Easter Storm out east, and then the All-Star Circuit Champs is right in the middle of their Ohio Speed Week.
I'll
Yep.
hop in here next and take some dirt super late models and both series in action this coming weekend. Luke's Oil Dirt late models will be at Lernerville for the Firecracker 100, and then the World Outlaw late models and Extreme Midgets will be at I-55.
Thanks. Last two to kind of keep an eye on, as we kind of mentioned it earlier. ARCA Menard Series heads to Elko. Obviously, we'll be keeping a close eye on that with Ty Fredrickson making his debut with the series. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then the Midwest Truck Series back in action at Marshfield Motor Speedway. So they'll be headed to Marshfield for their Hub City race. So we'll be keeping an eye on how that one shakes out, as James Swan is your winner from last year's event. So we'll be keeping an eye on what the truckers are doing up here in the great state of Wisconsin. So, kind of as I mentioned, asphalt ride side of things, Cup Series heads to Pocono. We might as well go ahead and make a few race picks.
One note here, real quick, because I just noticed this. In last year's race, only one driver had multiple stints in the lead. Otherwise, no driver led more than one stint in that race.
Okay, so chaotic.
So a little chaotic.
All right, what's the picking order here? Oh, I'm first.
Oh,
Yeah, nice. Coming off a week of rest, give me Denny Hamlin.
All right.
over the last 3 years, the average finish of 3.3. Give me Tyler Reddick.
Oh boy, you're really putting me on the spot here. I think we all know who won this race last year,
Yep.
and we obviously know who I cheer for on Sundays.
Yeah, might as well pick him.
Screw it. Give me Blaney.
Yeah, he'll blow up.
He's his average finish over the last 3 years, 21.3. That
With a
Pocono.
one. Yeah, with a one.
Got the cheat sheet here. Oh, sorry.
Ooh, good
Ooh.
Lord.
I'll send it to you guys. But
Yep.
Blaney goes 33, 30, and 1.
Hey,
So
he either makes it big or he goes broke, baby.
Yep.
perfect. Well, any other final thoughts as we wrap this bad boy up?
No.
Good conversations. I think conversations that were worth needing to be had.
Yep.
But it was on top of good racing at that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always wanting a little more. That's the hard part, is you got to take it with a little grain of salt. Always want more. Always want bigger and better. But that's kind of the what does it take to get to be bigger and better?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a side note. Freddie Kraft retweeted Osavar's penalty and says this may not be the stiffest penalty to come out of this weekend. So not sure if he has some intel on something else that could be coming.
Got it.
But I
I'd be
guess
curious on what it is.
Yeah.
who
Well,
knows?
penalty report comes out tomorrow. Tuesday, that is.
Well, today is Tuesday.
Well, I saw the
Oh, yeah.
I thought I saw the only penalty across the board was
Taylor Gray.
Taylor Gray for loose wheel.
Listen, yeah, loose wheel.
Which, okay, so if they release the penalty report, then I don't know what he's looking at.
So Freddie I'm guessing Freddie might be alluding to a similar situation potentially.
Ooh, yeah. Denny Hamlin posted a video that got quite a bit of backlash that does no longer exist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yikes.
All right, we're not going down that.
Nope,
we're
it's
not
only
try-
speculation.
Yeah. We'll just wait and see what comes. We'll just wait and see what comes out. But as always, don't be afraid to send this podcast to your best friend and your family, your cousins, whoever you got in your phone. We appreciate the listens. As always, don't be afraid to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next week for another episode of the Tuesday Track Talk.